Welcome to the information guidance evenings for the GCSEs for 2022. This is an evening which we planned to do in person, but unfortunately we've had to do virtually again. This is to look at revision strategies and information from core subjects that are going to help in the coming months and over this course of this year. Following this information going out and this evening that has been done virtually, I will be giving a countdown to exams booklet to every student. This booklet is to supplement the information and guidance that we're giving you in this presentation and will allow the students and yourselves to focus revision and the planning for your exams to come. So through the rest of the presentation, we're going to have a look at the school website and some areas of the website that can signpost you some revision and some helpful resources. We're going to look at the GCSE grading system, some revision advice, what GCSE pod is and how it can help you, show my homework and how it can support them, advice from the core subjects, the mock exams, exams information, exam stress, results day and how that might look this year, and provisional sixth form. Starting with the school website, there are a couple of areas that I think would be important to signpost you to. So the student information area has a learning zone and online safety. In there, there's links to GCSE Pod, which is an invaluable revision resource, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. Microsoft Office, Show My Homework, which the students obviously use for their homework at the moment, but there might be a lot of revision things that get set on there. Maths Watch and Microsoft Teams. The second area is the student exam information. Now this area has revision advice and it will be being developed over the next couple of weeks, the exam timetables and any mock information that we think will be important for the students to know. So the grading system for the GCSEs, although I put this down as a new GCSE grading system, for this year group it isn't actually new. They've been doing this since they started in year 7. However, just for the parents it might be easier to give you an idea of what these actually mean. So as you'll know, the grading system now is the 9-to-1 grading system, with 9 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. And just to give you an idea of what that would look like, what we're looking for them to kind of achieve as what used to be the grade C is that 4. That 4 grade is what is now represented as a pass grade. So revision, it's a big thing that we've been talking about over the last couple of months, and it's going to become even bigger over the next
couple of months leading into your exams and into your mock exams. So it's important to start thinking about it now. When should it have started? Well, it probably should have started already. If it hasn't started already, you need to get into it as soon as you possibly can. It's much easier to do little bits of revision and build it up as you go. If you think about where you're going to do it, you need to get a quiet workspace that's going to be free from distractions such as mobile phones and games consoles. It is really helpful if you do it in an opposite room. If you leave your phone somewhere else, you give it to your mum, your dad or someone else away from you while you're doing revision, it will take away those distractions. You need to think about what you're actually doing for your revision. We've been doing some work in your tutor time sessions recently about what to do, when to do it and what to look for. If you think about the quantity and the quality of what you're doing, it's quality that is going to make it much, much better for you. It is important to do as much as you can, but little bit quality revision more often will help you. There will be some after school revision sessions. We're not entirely sure how they're going to look, but they would normally start after Christmas. It is important to remember that you need to use those with caution. They're not there as a substitution for any independent study that you're going to do. You do need to support your revision in school with stuff outside of school as well. If you are someone that lives in Wolverhampton, we have previously, in previous years, done transport home for those students, and this will be something we'll be looking to do again. One of the biggest resources that we found that students really enjoy using and has made a big difference in the last couple of years has been GCSE Pod. I would hope, or I would imagine, that there's quite a few of you that have already started using GCSE Pod. I know some of the subjects have already started using it and have used it as homework tasks on Show My Homework as well. There's lots of videos, there's lots of audio on there that you can access from your PC, your tablet or your phone, and you can set it up so that you have a playlist that you can listen to. You can stream and download content from all of your subjects, and it's got some really key, easy ways to remember information. To log on to it, you can use your Office 365 details. So when you go onto GCSE Pod, there is the orange banner at the bottom which does say sign in with Office 365. And if you use that and sign in with your first name last name at aubreywells.com, your normal school username and your school password, you should be able to access all this information. Really make sure that you do go and have a look at it. It is a really good resource and the school does pay for that. How could you help your son or daughter with GCSE Pod? Well, one of the big things you can do is called retrieval practice. It's a way of revising that can help your son or daughter remember information. So you could help by watching a pod with your child on GCSE Pod. Ask them to write some keywords on a flashcard, watch the pod again and summarise their knowledge for each of the keywords on the back of it. Allow the child time to flesh the cards out to add more information, more things on there to help them remember what's on there, any key mnemonics or things like that to help them, and then test them. If you use those cards to test them, it means you have the information readily available and you can help them and direct them when they come to answer them. Another way to help out is to make sure that they do some spaced practice. So make sure that they regularly review, revise, test, repeat, but space out these revision for even better results. So long as they don't leave it too long and they do review it regularly, you can reduce the amount that you forget down to 10%. The graph just gives you a visual representation of While it's good to regularly review and repeat everything that you're doing, it's important to think about what you're actually doing within that revision. So the example I've given below is after 1 week you might do some memory cards, which allows them to test and revise but also have the knowledge readily available to them. Then after a month or a bit longer they might do some past papers. Now the past papers are a really good resource and they help them learn how to write for the exam and not just have the information available. If they've got the mark schemes available to them, they can also look at how the examiner would like them to structure their answers. As I said previously, it's important to think about what it is that you do when you're revising. So another way you can look at your revision is to do what we call dual coding. Dual coding means using things like pictures to help you remember, because we learn much better from visual resources. As you can see, you might learn 10% of things in 3 days just by reading text alone and trying to remember what was there. But if we use a picture to go alongside it, it gives us that visual representation. There are people that obviously visual representations and visual pictures do help a lot better for their learning, which then makes their revision much easier to remember. We have done some stuff on looking at what our learning styles are, visual, auditory or kinesthetic. So not just using pictures, you can also use sound bites to help. The final revision practice that you can use using GCSE Pod is what you call interleaved practice, which is a way of switching ideas and topics to help you remember. It has been proven that if you swap between topics, so if you do topic A, then look at topic B, then topic C, and then go back to topic A, for example, that you do learn this better and it does help your memory retrieval. It helps you learn more and retrieve things from your long-term memory. So your son or daughter will have had a go at making a revision timetable when they were in school, but having looked at the interleaving practice, it might be worth going back and revisiting them and looking at topics as well as just the subjects, and starting looking at how we interleave those things and make them so we're looking at one topic and then the next topic and then the next topic and mixing them up to help our long-term retrieval. Your son or daughter will by now be used to using Show My Homework. You'll have noticed it'll have changed its name now to Satchel 1, which is still the same app and it still does the same things. We set all of our homework on there, and we will be setting revision materials and things to help out as we get further into the year. You can obviously get your son or daughter to send comments to the teachers, and the teachers can talk directly to the students to help them with any revision and any homework they might be concerned with. You can, as parents, also access Satchel 1. You can use the parent code that was given to you at the start of the year. If you need this reissuing or you've lost it, if you leave your name and your email address and the name of your son or daughter on the form at the end of the presentation, we'll be able to get back to you. If you have more than one child at Albury Wells, you will need to have more than one parent code, but they can be managed through the same account. Students, they should know how to sign on to this by now, but it is their school email address and password, and they use the Office 365 option to sign in. There is a guide to logging in and any troubleshooting, so any problems that you may have on the Albury Wells website. The next couple of slides I'll pass you on to the heads of the department for English, Maths and Science, Mrs Lawson, Mrs Barlow and Mrs Morgan, and they will take you through some of the key things to think about for science, English and maths.
Obviously, this year things are going to be different than they have in previous years, but some things have remained the same. There'll be a greater emphasis on spelling, punctuation and grammar. 20% of the English language grade will be awarded for these skills. All students will study both language and literature. All assessment is at the time of speaking via terminal exams. Revision, recapping and regular revisiting is essential. All of these exams are closed book and therefore the students will need to learn quotations. This year students will have studied an Inspector Calls or Blood Brothers. On top of this, 15 poems and currently a full Shakespeare play, Macbeth, The Merchant of Venice or Julius Caesar. This year the students will not be examined on their pre-1900 novel, Christmas Carol or Jekyll and Hyde. This has been dropped from the optional paper. This was the text that was studied during lockdown and we feel this is probably the text the students are least comfortable and confident with. So as a parent, what can you do to help? The most important thing is to encourage wide reading, good quality fiction if possible, but also non-fiction too. A quality newspaper, as often the texts for Paper 2 English language are taken from a newspaper. This is the biggest help that you can give to your child, and we all know that it's not necessarily easy to do, but it is makes such a big difference. You can purchase revision guides if your child is struggling both for language and for the set text. There is a list on the school website of the recommended revision guides. All of them are relatively inexpensive and they're available for the different types of text, and they're also available for English language too. You can also buy copies of the set text for your child to use at home so that they can actually write in the text. If we give them one from school, obviously they can't do that. Have a look at the homework that we are setting. If it's a learning homework, can you help them with that? You could talk to them about what they're doing in class and even read their set text alongside them. Keep in touch with us is the single most important thing. We're confident that we are organised, we know what the students are doing and that we are online to prepare them for these exams. But if you are worried or concerned or confused, then contact your child's own English teacher. That's the very best way that we can support you. You might also be able to help the students with revision, mind maps, visual clues, actions, revision cards, repetition, testing. All the things that have already been spoken about are important for English too.
The current GCSE course has a much greater emphasis on problem solving and reasoning than students might have had to do in the past. Students are expected to be able to combine their understanding from several different topics to solve individual problems. This means that practicing exam questions is just as important as revising individual topics. At the end of the course, students will sit 3 exam papers covering the whole of the course that they started at the beginning of Year 9. There's no coursework or anything like that. Everything is on those 3 exam papers, and it does include quite a lot of content, so it's important that they start their revision now. We're aware that the last few months have been very challenging for students, and that our current Year 11s had to do several weeks worth of work at home. Students have recently been tested on those topics that they completed at home. We expect to finish teaching the GCSE course shortly after Christmas, as we usually would do, and after that we're going to reteach or review any topics that they studied at home if the assessment shows that they need to do this. So we'll make sure that any gaps are filled in, and after that we'll begin our usual programme of revision and exam preparation in lessons. The 3 exam papers are all 1.5 hours in length. The first exam paper is a non-calculator paper, and the other 2 papers are calculator allowed. All topics can come up on any of the 3 papers, so we don't know what's going to come up on each one. All 3 papers will consist of some questions that test mathematical knowledge in quite a straightforward way. There will be some questions which expect students to explain their reasoning, and there will be some questions which require them to solve quite complex problems and link different topics together. All 3 of the papers have the easier topics at the beginning and the more difficult topics at the end. There are 2 tiers of entry for maths, foundation and higher. On the foundation paper, students can achieve grades 1 to 5, where 4 is a pass. Students taking the higher paper can achieve mainly grades 4 to 9, although there is a very small window where they could achieve a 3. If they get lower than that window, then they would get a U. The questions themselves start at grade 4 level, and half of the marks on the paper are at grades 7, 8 and 9. We use the mock exams to decide which tier of entry will get students the best grade, and in any borderline cases we may ask students to sit additional short diagnostic tests which the exam board have given us to help us to make those decisions. In all cases we will make the decision to enter the student for the tier that we feel will get them the best grade, and we'll make those decisions before Easter. We have invested in personal logins for all students for the MathsWatch website. Students can search either by topic or by grade for videos explaining how to do everything on the Maths GCSE, and with each video there are interactive questions which students can complete online and which will then be marked for them. All questions are modelled on past paper exam questions, so they are really good practice for the exams. In lessons, teachers will start to give out practice papers after Christmas time. Students will be getting practice papers both in lessons and for homework to go through. Students have had the opportunity over the last 2 years to buy revision guides through school, so most students will have had the opportunity to get those if they want them, but if they don't have them yet, then they can get recommendations of revision guides from their teachers. And there are other websites available that students can access for free, such as Corbett Maths, Mr Barton Maths and BBC Bitesize, and Year 11 also have logins for GCSE Pod. We are often asked how parents can support their children with revision for maths. The most important thing, I think, is to encourage them to start revising now. There is an enormous amount of content that they've already covered, and there is more yet to come. And if they leave it to the last minute, they simply won't have time to go over all of the topics that they've done since the beginning of Year 9. So it's important that they start to schedule in short, regular revision sessions from now on and throughout the year. Encourage them to make full use of the online subscriptions and other resources that we have provided. Revision cards are great, but doing the practice is the most important thing for maths. So it's very important that once they have made some revision cards or some revision notes, that they then actually test their knowledge by applying it to some exam style questions, which they can do on MathsWatch, or they can do in most revision practice guides and workbooks. They do need a scientific calculator, and if they don't have one already, it's important that they get one soon, because they need to know how to use it confidently in the exam. So if they can have it with them in all of their maths lessons from now on, then they'll be used to it, and they'll be used to using those advanced functions and knowing how they work before they get to the exams. Finally, encourage them to keep up an excellent attitude to learning in school. They get 9 hours of curriculum time for maths over the course of a fortnight, and then they get the home learning, which is set by teachers. And actually that's going to be the most important part of their exam preparation. All of the revision and independent study that they do is the icing on the cake. If they're not working in their lessons, then that's where they're going to stop making the progress that they need to make between now and the summer.
Hello, my name's Mrs Morgan and I'm the Director of Science at Alby Wells School. While we're going through the next few slides, I'm hoping to give you some guidance on how you can support your son or daughter in getting prepared ready for their science GCSEs. The science course information that you need to be aware of is that each student, irrespective of whether they are doing a triple science or a combined science, will sit 6 exam papers. The difference being that triple science will have 1 hour 45 minutes, purely due to the fact that they have additional content that they cover during those lessons. The combined science will have 1 hour 15 minutes for their exams. The tiers of entry depend on your child's predicted grades. We can discuss after both mock exams have been completed, which is aiming to be in March next year, whether your child will be a foundation or a higher tier learner. If, for instance, they are aiming to get a 4 or above on their levels, they would be going in for a higher paper. If your science, however, we need to make sure that we recognise the awarding body, and the awarding body that is followed at Alby Wells School is the AQA for combined science and triple science. Alongside this, each student will carry out certain required practicals. Those required practicals are essential as they are part of the extended questions during the exam papers. They make up 15% of the marks on all papers. There is a really good video link of AQA required practicals that can be easily found on YouTube, and we recommend the Mulberry Education or free science lessons, which are specifically following the AQA practical requirement. When we look at science papers, students also have quite a bit of maths content that is going towards their final grade. So like it says here, 10% for biology, 20% for chemistry, 30% for physics, especially in your higher papers. They can include things like algebra, graphs, handling data, so it's important that alongside their revision they upskill on some maths content as well. There is plenty of support out there to help with things that you can do. You can help your child prepare for all the written papers, and you can access practice papers, so previous GCSEs, on this following link through AQA. You can also ensure that your child is using a revision guide. We recommend the Combined Science 9:1 GCSE by CGP, or the Triple Science ones, again by CGP, but you would need to buy a separate science revision guide for biology, physics and chemistry. These are easily obtainable on Amazon, and your son or daughter may already have one from when they were in year 9. They can then practice things like the math skills and, more importantly, timings. If they're practicing their question papers, they need a timer because 1 mark equals 1 minute. So that allows them to get pace ready for their exams. The most important thing though is to ask. Please ask us, your teaching teams, for help on hints and tips and support in revising. Other resources that you can access to help you online are really good tools such as BBC Bitesize, your past papers and mark schemes, the YouTube simple animations to help you understand key theories or key areas that you're struggling with for revision. Ones that we'd recommend are Fuse School or Cognito. You can also enhance your maths by going on to stem.org.uk. And then, as with other subjects, GCSE Pod have good video recaps that you can have and watch, and Seneca Learning is an online platform where you can track and test yourself against content.
Okay, back to me, and just a couple of dates and things for you to remember. So your mock exams will be running from the 22nd of November to the 3rd of December this year. They will form the basis of your 16 plus applications, so your college applications, your sixth forms and your apprenticeships, and they may be needed to inform some tiers of entries for the exams that will be happening in the summer. Exams are still scheduled to take place this year. We're waiting on a bit of guidance from DfE and the exam boards on a consultation that has happened, and as soon as we are aware of what any adaptations might be that they've made, we will let you know. The exam timetables will be made available to you as soon as possible, but it's important to remind you of things that you need to have when you come to those exams. It's important to turn up on time and be prepared. We have equipment in school that you can buy from us to make sure that you have those ready for them. A couple of things to remind you about: your phones obviously need to be turned off, and your alarms. Wearing watches isn't acceptable, and it's important to note that any drawings or writing on hands and arms will be recorded, and any infractions have to be reported to the exam board.
We do understand as well that all this information and revision that we keep talking about is going to be a very challenging time for pupils, and there will be things that you are going to be unsure of this year. It is going to be a year like no other. We do have people available to us in school, and it is important you get a good night's sleep. If you need to speak to anyone, if you email either myself, Mr. Coburn or Miss Barlow, our pastoral support worker, we can get back to you during school, or we can email you back and talk to you and help you out with anything you might need.
So results day so far hasn't been confirmed yet, but as soon as it is, we will let you know what that is. We're assuming that it will follow on from previous years, so the following things will apply. You'll be given an allocated time to come and collect your results. There'll be careers advice and sixth form enrolment information available on the day. It may be that parents won't be allowed to come onto site with students to collect the results, but they'll be able to obviously pick them up in the car park afterwards. And for those not coming into school on results day, it's important that you have a stamped addressed envelope provided to Mrs. Wellings before results day, so that those can be mailed out to you. Exam certificates will be available from the East reception Monday to Friday between 8 AM and 4 PM from the 1st of December 2022 until the 18th of February.